The bioluminescence was fading. Her life signs were plummeting, and every monitor in the makeshift med bay was blaring. Dr. Jake Walker took a deep breath and ignored the holographic projections of Alini officials shaking their heads in disgust. Dr. Walker, the lead official's image flickered, his multi-jointed face pinched with disapproval. Estelle's condition is untenable. We must consider the political realities. Resources allocated to her care could be better used elsewhere. Jake spared him a glance, his lips pursed. With all due respect, counselor, I'm rerouting power from non-essential station systems to boost the bioelectrical output. Stand by for possible brownouts in sectors 4 through 7. He didn't wait for a response, his fingers flying across the console, overriding safety protocols. The station lights flickered ominously. He was risking a station-wide blackout, but Estelle's fading glow demanded it. He glanced at the readouts again. Estelle of the Alini. Her medical history was a tapestry of fading grandeur. A member of a matriarchal lineage renowned for their immense size even by Alini standards and their unique empathic abilities, she was now just another dying patient on a station too small to matter. A chime from the medical AI drew his attention. Doctor, multiple anomalies detected in the patient's genetic structure. Possible unknown disease or deliberately engineered genetic tampering flagged. Jake frowned, running a diagnostic. He'd come to this remote station seeking oblivion, a place to bury the ashes of a failed research project on xenocompatibility. He'd wanted isolation, not this. This was a challenge he couldn't ignore, a challenge that reawakened a part of him he thought he'd killed. Then he saw it. Buried deep within Estelle's genetic code, a hidden message. Ancient Alini symbols, almost invisible to the untrained eye. A plea for help. He cursed under his breath, grabbing a modified human surgical tool, a neural probe adapted with salvaged station components, and preparing for an emergency procedure. He needed to relieve the pressure building on her failing bioelectrical core. Human medicine was woefully inadequate for an Alini, but he was improvising. As he worked, carefully navigating the alien physiology, he noticed a disturbing pattern. Crystalline structures were forming within Estelle's tissues, spreading like a malignant frost. A previously undocumented biological process, or something far worse. He pulled up the station's historical archive, searching for any mention of similar cases. He found a heavily redacted section detailing ancient human Alini alliances, treaties forged millennia ago, and then abruptly severed. The reasons were obscured, the records incomplete. Another holographic communication. This time, the counselor's face was colder, harder. Dr. Walker, we have dispatched a security team to commitment the Estelle situation. Please do not interfere. The implication was clear. They were coming to terminate her life support. Damn them. He needed answers. He activated a secure comm channel, contacting a former colleague, Dr. Aris Thorne, a xenolinguist specializing in ancient Alini dialects. Aris, I need your help. I've got a patient here, an Alini giantess with a message encoded in her genome. I need you to decipher it fast. Jake, what kind of trouble have you gotten yourself into this time? Aris's voice was filled with weary amusement. The kind that involves a genetic plague targeting the empaths, Jake said grimly. And Aris, I think Estelle is the last of her kind. Before Aris could respond, a station-wide alarm blared. Red lights flashed. Intruder alert. Sector 7 Medbay access point. Repeat, intruder alert. The Alini security team had arrived. Jake banged his head on the console, adrenaline surging through him. He activated the med bay's emergency lockdown, sealing the doors. All right, he muttered, grabbing a discarded plasma cutter. Let's see how badly these politicians want her dead. He would protect her. He had to. The door buckled inward with a screech of tortured metal. Jake cursed, smacking his fist on the activation rune for the station's automated turrets. Twin laser cannons, normally used for asteroid defense, swiveled into position, their targeting reticles painting the advancing Alini security team in lethal crimson. He scrambled back, grabbing a discarded bioscanner off a nearby table. The turrets opened fire, bathing the corridor in searing light. The Alini soldiers, clad in sleek black armor, scattered behind energy shields that shimmered and distorted under the barrage. One soldier wasn't fast enough. The laser sliced through his shield and armor, leaving a smoking crater where he'd stood. A searing pain ripped through Jake's left arm. He glanced down to see a shard of shrapnel embedded deep in his bicep. He hissed, squeezing his eyes shut. Then a wave of cool, soothing energy washed over him. The pain receded, replaced by a tingling warmth. He looked up at Estelle. Her silver eyes glowed with an unnatural intensity, her brow furrowed in concentration. He could feel her. Concern, pity, it was overwhelming. "Estelle, what are you doing?" he gasped. "Easing your pain, Jake," she responded, her voice a low hum in his mind. "You're suffering. It resonates within me." The shrapnel ejected itself from his arm, the wound closing rapidly. Her empathic touch was far more potent than any painkiller he'd ever encountered. He shook his head, trying to regain focus. "Thanks, but we're not out of the woods yet." He accessed the station's AI through his neural implant, his fingers flying across a holographic keyboard. "Seal off Med Bay Wing, Level 5 Security Protocol. Initiate obstacle course." The corridors shifted and groaned as bulkheads slammed shut, creating a maze of interconnected chambers. Laser grids flickered to life, bathing the passageways in emerald light. Automated sanitation drones, repurposed as mobile barriers, trundled into position, their scrubbers whirring menacingly. He even rerouted the oxygen supply to create pockets of near vacuum, a desperate, improvised defense. As he worked, his hand brushed against a small, metallic box he'd been using to calibrate his Xeno scanner. A jolt of memory hit him. A dusty archive on Earth, filled with ancient texts and artifacts. He was a student then, obsessed with the long-lost alliance between humanity and the Alini. Flashback. A younger Jake, hunched over a holographic display in a dimly lit archive, meticulously translating ancient Alini glyphs. Images flickered across the screen, humans and Alini working side by side, sharing knowledge, technology, and even genetic material. One image stood out, a human doctor using a primitive device to heal an injured Alini giantess. The glyphs below the image translated to, "The gift of empathy shared across stars." The memory faded, leaving Jake with a renewed sense of purpose. This wasn't just about saving a single alien. It was about honoring a forgotten pact. A series of explosions rocked the Med Bay wing. The Alini security team was blasting their way through his traps. Their weaponry was far more advanced than he'd anticipated. Plasma cutters sliced through bulkheads like butter. Anti-gravity grenades levitated and pulverized obstacles. They were relentless. Suddenly, Estelle's voice echoed in his mind again, clearer and stronger this time. "Jake, they are not here to rescue me." He paused, confused. "What do you mean?" "They seek the data crystal within my bioelectrical core. It contains information the Council wishes to suppress." Her mental voice was permeated with fear and a deep sense of betrayal. "A data crystal? What kind of information?" He asked, his mind racing. Evidence of their crimes, their conspiracy. He grabbed his modified medical scanner, its human-designed jury rigged with xenotechnology. "All right, let's find this thing." He adjusted the scanner's frequency, attempting to penetrate Estelle's complex bioelectrical field. The scanner screen flickered with static, then dedicationed into a chaotic jumble of energy patterns. "It's heavily encrypted," he muttered, "like trying to read a book written in lightning." He tweaked the settings, focusing on areas of high energy concentration. There, a small, dense node pulsating with encrypted data. "Got it. It's located near your, what would be your heart equivalent?" Another explosion, closer this time. The final lockdown door buckled and groaned. The security team was about to break through. "They're almost here," he said, adrenaline coursing through his veins. He grabbed a scalpel from a nearby tray, its polished steel glinting in the emergency lights. He wasn't a soldier, but he knew anatomy, human and alien. The door shattered inward, showering the room with sparks and debris. The Alini security team stormed in, weapons raised. Jake braced himself, ready to fight. He moved with a speed born of desperation, using his knowledge of Alini anatomy to target vulnerable pressure points and bioelectrical nodes. He disabled one soldier with a precise strike to the neck, disrupting the flow of energy to his nervous system. Another went down with a swift kick to the knee joint, crippling his mobility. But the team leader was tougher, more experienced. He parried Jake's attacks with practiced ease, his energy blade humming with deadly power. Jake dodged a swipe that would have cleaved him in two, feeling the heat of the blade singe his hair. He managed to disarm the team leader, but not before the Alini activated a small device on his wrist. A high-pitched whine filled the air. "Self-destruct sequence initiated," the team leader hissed, a cruel smile twisting his lips. "The data crystal will be destroyed along with any evidence of the Council's treachery." Jake reacted instantly. He grabbed Estelle, pulling her towards the biohazard containment chamber. "Get in." "What are you doing?" she asked, fear flashing in her eyes. "Isolating the blast radius," he shouted, shoving her inside. He slammed the door shut, sealing the chamber. He then sealed the chamber and input the command to flush the room with a bio-neutralizing agent. The data crystal detonated with a blinding flash and a deafening roar. The med bay shook violently. Jake braced himself against the wall, shielding his face. When the dust settled, the data crystal was gone, reduced to a pile of smoking ash. "Damn it!" he exclaimed. Estelle emerged from the containment chamber, coughing slightly. "It is gone, destroyed." Her voice was heavy with despair. "Not entirely," Jake said, his eyes narrowing in thought. "The encryption key. A fragmented copy might still exist within your subconscious mind, a residual echo." Estelle looked at him, hope flickering in her eyes. "Can you retrieve it?" "It'll be risky," Jake admitted. "I'll have to interface directly with your neural network, a deep dive into your memories." "I trust you, Jake," she said, her voice barely a whisper. He prepared the neural interface, connecting a series of electrodes to Estelle's temples. "This might be intense," he warned. "You'll be reliving some painful memories." As the interface activated, Jake felt a surge of energy coursing through his mind. He was plunged into a swirling vortex of images, emotions, and sensations. He was inside Estelle's mind. He saw the history of the empaths, their connection to the life force of the planet, their ability to heal and inspire. He saw their persecution, the fear and hatred they inspired in those who craved power. He saw the Council's betrayal, their secret plot to eradicate the empaths and seize control of the Alini homeworld. He navigated through the chaotic landscape of Estelle's memories, searching for the fragmented encryption key. It was buried deep within her subconscious, guarded by layers of trauma and pain. Finally, he found it. A shimmering shard of data hidden within a forgotten corner of her mind. He reached out and grabbed it, feeling a jolt of pure energy. The interface disconnected. Jake gasped for breath, his head spinning. Estelle swayed, her eyes unfocused. "Did you get it?" she asked, her voice weak. "I got it," Jake confirmed, his voice hoarse. "But it's not complete. We need something more, someone who knows the plan." Just then the station AI chimed in. "Incoming message from Alini scientist Dr. Aris Thorne." "Put him through," Jake said, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. Jake and Estelle wake up next to each other. They begin to notice a change in Estelle's appearance to be more human. Estelle stirred beside him, her silver eyes fluttering open. Sunlight streamed through the reinforced viewport, illuminating the med bay in a soft glow. They were lying on a bio bed, tangled in a mess of wires and blankets. "Jake, what happened?" she murmured, her voice thick with sleep. "We interfaced," he said, sitting up and rubbing his temples. We got the encryption key fragment, and we might have found an ally. Estelle sat up as well, her eyes widening as she looked at him, then at herself. She reached up and touched her face, tracing the curve of her jawline. What is happening to me? She whispered, her voice filled with confusion. Jake stared at her, dumbfounded. Her skin, once a vibrant emerald green, was now a softer, more muted shade, closer to human skin tones. Her facial features, once distinctly Alini, seemed softer, more rounded. Even her height seemed to have decreased slightly. I don't know, he stammered, but you're changing. The station's AI interrupted their conversation. Alert! Massive power surge detected emanating from the Alini homeworld. Energy signature matches that of a large-scale genetic weapon activation. Jake's blood ran cold. The plague, they've activated it. He looked at Estelle, her face a mask of fear and drive. We have to stop them, he said, his voice resolute. We have to go to the Alini homeworld. How do they get there? They'll need a ship. Jake didn't wait for a response. He was already striding towards the station's seldom-used docking bays, Estelle lumbering to keep pace. Bay 72. Outdated transport, barely flight-worthy, but it's got a functional cloaking device, perfect for a quick getaway. The bay was a graveyard of forgotten tech. Dust coated the aged transport ship, its hull scarred and faded. Jake bypassed the security panel with practiced ease, hot wiring the launch sequence. Get inside and brace yourself. This is going to be bumpy. As the transport shuddered to life and detached from the station, alarms blared. Red lights pulsed through the corridors. Station security, Estelle boomed, her voice echoing even within the cramped cockpit. I was hoping we'd have more time, Jake muttered, flipping a series of switches. Cloaking engaged. The ship shimmered, becoming nearly invisible against the backdrop of space. But their reprieve was short-lived. An Alini patrol ship, sleek and menacing, materialized in front of them, its weapons powered up, bathing the transport in an ominous green glow. They saw us, Estelle gasped. The cloaking device. It's not fully functional. Time for Plan B, Jake said grimly, grabbing the controls. He veered sharply, dodging a volley of plasma fire. Hold on tight. The ensuing space battle was a chaotic dance of near misses and desperate maneuvers. Jake, surprisingly adept at piloting, weaved through the patrol ship's attacks, using the transport's limited agility to his advantage. He fired back with the transport's outdated laser cannons, managing to score a few hits on the Alini vessel's shields. How? Estelle asked, her eyes wide. Grew up on flight sims, Jake replied, dodging another blast. Never thought it'd come in handy. He noticed a slight weakness in the patrol ship's firing pattern. They're overcompensating on their targeting matrix, predictable. He aimed for the exposed junction, a direct hit. The patrol ship listed, its weapons system sputtering. Disabling shot, Jake confirmed, breathing heavily. But we took some damage too. He pointed to a sparking console. Life support's failing. And the navigation systems are shot. Estelle placed her massive hand on the damaged console, her bioluminescent skin glowing brighter. The sparking subsided. The console flickered back to life. I've stabilized the systems, she said, her voice strained, but it took a lot of energy. She slumped back in her seat, her skin paling. Jake initiated the hyperspace jump. The stars stretched into streaks of light as the transport hurtled towards the Alini homeworld. But the ship lurched violently. Alarms blared again. Navigation's completely gone, Jake said, fighting to maintain control. We're heading. Somewhere, I don't know where. He closed his eyes, focusing. Think, Jake, think. A memory surfaced, unbidden. A specific entry in the ancient human Alini texts detailing a secret hyperspace route known only to a few navigators. A route that bypassed major checkpoints and shortened the journey to the homeworld. He rerouted the ship, inputting the coordinates from the ancient text. The transport shuddered again, then stabilized. The chaotic trajectory smoothed into a focused path. What did you do? Estelle asked, her voice weak. I know a shortcut, Jake said, forcing a smile. But we're not out of the woods yet. I need something from you. He pulled out a modified neural interface, a device designed to extract fragmented memories. I need to access the encryption key locked in your subconscious. He gently placed the interface on Estelle's forehead. Her eyes fluttered. She gasped, her body convulsing. Too much, she moaned, clutching her head. It's too painful. Jake immediately removed the device. I'm sorry, he said, his voice filled with concern. I didn't realize it would hurt so much. He sat beside her, taking her hand. I won't do that again, I promise. Estelle looked at him, her eyes filled with gratitude and a growing affection. Why are you doing this, Jake? Why are you risking everything for me? Because you're worth saving, he said, his voice sincere. Because what's happening to you, it's not right, and because... He hesitated. Because I care about you, Estelle, more than I thought possible. Estelle's fingers tightened around his. And you, Jake Walker. Suddenly, the transport lurched violently, throwing them against the console. Alarms blared once more. They were exiting hyperspace. But instead of the familiar blue of the Alini homeworld, they were met with a wall of ships, a planetary blockade. The homeworld was under martial law. We're trapped, Estelle said, her voice filled with despair. Not yet, Jake said, his eyes scanning the blockade. He accessed the transport's communication systems, his fingers flying across the console. Time for a Hail Mary. He overrode the blockade's communication channels, broadcasting a coded message, a series of tones and frequencies that referenced the ancient human-Alini alliance. A message that he hoped someone would recognize. A moment of tense silence. Then, a response. A single line of code transmitted on a secure channel. We have a contact, Jake said, relief flooding his voice. A sympathetic pilot within the blockade. They're giving us a landing code and coordinates for a hidden landing bay. He guided the transport through the blockade, following the pilot's instructions. As they approached the landing bay, they witnessed a scene of brutal repression. Alini security forces violently suppressing a protest, firing energy weapons into the crowd. They're killing their own people, Estelle whispered, her voice filled with horror. Jake landed the transport in the hidden bay, the ship settling with a groan. The bay doors opened, revealing a small group of Alini rebels, led by a scientist Jake recognized from his Dr. Arch, Dr. Aris Thorne. Dr. Walker, Estelle, Thorne greeted them, relief etched on his face. We were beginning to lose hope. Estelle swayed, leaning heavily on Jake for support. Her bioluminescence flickered erratically. She needs help, Jake said urgently. Thorne nodded. We'll get you both to safety, but there's little time. The Council has implemented a city-wide surveillance system. Every communication, every movement is being monitored. And the plague? Jake asked. They're preparing to deploy it on a wider scale, Thorne confirmed, his voice grim. We must act quickly. Thorne paused, his gaze settling on Estelle. What you are becoming. It is something the Council fears, but it is also our only hope. Others from your race have visited our planet before, Estelle. Humans. They left us a gift, something we call the seed. We must get you there. And that's why we need to get it back. The rebel scientist, a wiry Alini named Kalen, finished, his bioluminescent stripes flickering with urgency. The seed is a repository of ancient human knowledge and technology, hidden deep within a forgotten Alini research facility. It's our only hope to restore the Giantess's abilities and break the Council's hold. He gestured to a holographic map shimmering in the center of the cramped rebel command center. Unfortunately, that facility is located smack dab in the middle of a war zone. The Crimson Hand, extremists who want the Giantesses gone, and the Azure Guard, what's left of the loyalists and scientists who have been working to keep them safe, are constantly battling for control of that region. Jake frowned. So we're walking into a hornet's nest. Kalen nodded grimly. Precisely, but we have no choice. Estelle's fading and the Council will never help us. Estelle, disguised in bulky rebel armor that dwarfed her already immense frame, stood beside Jake, her violet eyes filled with a quiet persistence. Then we go. A few hours later, under the cover of a perpetual twilight that blanketed the war-torn region, Jake and Estelle, their armor painted in the drab gray of the Azure Guard, moved out with a small squad of rebels. The air hung thick with the metallic tang of ionized particles and the distant rumble of plasma cannons. Suddenly, a burst of energy fire scorched the ground ahead of them. "Alini security forces," Kalen hissed. "Take cover." Jake reacted instantly, dropping to one knee and raising his modified pulse rifle. Years of hopping between conflict zones had honed his combat instincts to a razor's edge. He squeezed the trigger, sending a volley of blue energy bolts towards the approaching patrol. Estelle, despite her weakened state, closed her eyes, her brow furrowed in concentration. "They're flanking us to the east," she murmured, her voice strained. "3 of them, heavy weapons." Kalen relayed the information to the squad, who adjusted their positions accordingly. Jake trusted Estelle's empathic senses, even if he didn't fully understand them. He'd seen her predict enemy movements with uncanny accuracy before. The firefight was brief but intense. Jake, using his human reflexes and tactical thinking, moved quickly between cover, taking down 2 of the security forces with well-aimed shots. The rebels finished off the last one. As the echoes of the battle faded, Estelle swayed slightly, her hand clutching her side. That took more out of me than I thought," she gasped, her bioluminescence flickering weakly. Before Jake could respond, a deafening explosion rocked the ground. They were thrown to the ground as a hail of shrapnel rained down around them. "Ambush!" Kalen yelled. "Crimson Hand extremists! They've got plasma mortars!" The extremists, clad in crimson armor and wielding advanced weaponry scavenged from ancient battlefields, swarmed out of the ruins. They were fanatical in their hatred of the Giantesses, believing they were an abomination that threatened the purity of Alini society. They also seemed to despise humans, shouting slurs as they advanced. Jake, scrambling to his feet, saw that they were pinned down. The extremists' plasma mortars were tearing apart their cover, and their energy rifles were cutting through the air like razors. "We need a distraction," Jake shouted over the din of battle, "something to draw their fire." Estelle, despite her pain, focused her empathic abilities. "There's a power conduit nearby," she said, pointing to a shattered building. "If you can overload it." Jake nodded, a spark of ingenuity igniting in his eyes. He grabbed a discarded energy cell from a fallen rebel and began fiddling with it, rerouting its energy flow with practiced ease. "Cover me," he yelled, then dashed towards the power conduit, dodging plasma fire as he went. Reaching the conduit, Jake jammed the modified energy cell into the overload port. A series of crackling explosions erupted, sending sparks and energy arcs flying in all directions. The extremists, momentarily distracted, turned their fire towards the sparking conduit. In the chaos, a stray plasma bolt struck Estelle, searing through her armor and into her flesh. She cried out in pain, collapsing to the ground. Jake, seeing her fall, felt a surge of protective rage. He emptied his pulse rifle into the ranks of the extremists, then raced back to her side. "Estelle," he cried, kneeling beside her. "Are you all right?" Estelle groaned, her face contorted in pain. I'm fine," she whispered, her voice weak. "But I'm slowing you down, Jake. I'm a burden to you, to my people." Jake cupped her face in his hands, his voice firm and reassuring. "Don't say that, Estelle. You're not a burden, you're the strongest person I know, and you're not slowing me down, we're a team." He paused, thinking, then said, "There was this human back on Earth who was told he was too slow, too weak, nothing, but he kept running, he didn't give up. He was told he couldn't, that he wasn't good enough, but he just kept going, and in the end he won. He surprised everyone because he refused to quit. That's the kind of strength you have, Estelle. Don't forget it." Estelle looked at him, her violet eyes filled with tears. "Thank you, Jake," she whispered. Thank you for believing in me." With rekindled purpose, they pressed on, the remaining rebels providing cover as they made their way towards the research facility. As they approached, they saw that the entrance was heavily guarded, rigged with laser grids and pressure-sensitive mines. "Someone else knows about the seed," Kalen said, his voice grim, "and they don't want us getting to it." Jake, his engineering instincts kicking in, began scanning the security systems with his wrist-mounted scanner. "Stand back," he said. "I can disable these traps." Working with practiced efficiency, Jake used his engineering skills to bypass the laser grids and disarm the pressure mines. He rerouted power conduits, reprogrammed security protocols, and bypassed biometric scanners, all while dodging automated turrets and patrolling security drones. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, they reached the inner sanctum of the research facility. The air inside was cold and sterile, filled with the hum of dormant machinery. In the center of the room stood a massive holographic projector, its surface shimmering with ancient symbols. As they approached, the projector flickered to life, displaying a vast archive of information about the ancient Human-Aleni alliance. Images of human scientists working alongside Aleni healers filled the air, along with schematics of advanced technology and historical records of their shared history. Then, the projector displayed the answer they had been seeking. "The seed is not a physical object," a holographic voice echoed through the chamber. "It is a genetic template, containing the original DNA of the Aleni empaths, the Giantesses. It is designed to restore their abilities and counteract genetic manipulation." The projector displayed complex genetic sequences, revealing the artificial modifications that had been made to the empath's DNA over the centuries. It also revealed something far more disturbing. The genetic plague that was killing Estelle had been developed using human technology, obtained through clandestine means. Before they could fully process this revelation, the facility's alarms blared to life. Red lights flashed, and the sound of approaching footsteps echoed through the corridors. "We're under attack," Kalen yelled. "It's the Council's enforcers. They know we're here." As the sound of gunfire grew closer, Estelle's condition worsened rapidly. Her bioluminescence began to fade completely, her skin turning a sickly gray. She gasped for breath, her body trembling uncontrollably. Then, with a final, desperate sigh, she collapsed to the ground, her eyes fluttering shut. Her body lay still, unmoving. The last vestiges of her inner light flickered and died, leaving Jake kneeling beside her in the cold, sterile darkness. Jake rerouted power from the station's emergency lighting grid, the hum of the bioelectrical regulators around Estelle intensifying. Her bioluminescent skin pulsed weakly, a flickering emerald flame against the sterile white of the med bay. He adjusted the flow of the nutrient solution, his brow furrowed in concentration. Human medicine was failing her. He needed to rely on what little he understood of Aleni physiology, improvising with the station's limited resources. He glanced at the holographic projections of Aleni officials, their expressions a mixture of disdain and thinly veiled impatience. They were waiting for her to die. Suddenly, the medbay doors hissed open and a squad of Aleni Council enforcers stormed in, weapons raised. "Dr. Walker," the lead enforcer barked, his voice amplified by his helmet's modulator, "stand aside. By order of the Council, the subject is to be terminated." Jake stood his ground, his eyes hardening. "I won't let you do this." He activated the med bay's automated defenses, laser grids shimmering into existence, repair drones buzzing forward like metallic insects. He'd programmed them for less than lethal engagement, hoping to buy time. "This facility is under my authority. You violate protocol." A firefight erupted, the air thick with the smell of ozone and burning metal. Jake ducked behind a medical console, firing a repurposed plasma scalpel at the enforcers. He was a doctor, not a soldier, but he knew this station, every vent, every conduit. He used the automated repair drones as makeshift decoys, their movements erratic and distracting. "This is Dr. Walker," he transmitted on a secure channel, his voice tight with urgency. "I am under attack by Council enforcers. Request immediate assistance. I repeat, I am under attack." He knew the rebel forces were nearby, but broadcasting their location was a gamble. It was a sacrifice he was prepared to make. He scrambled to grab an enforcer's dropped weapon, recognizing the power cell housing. He cursed under his breath, dismantling it with practiced ease. A microchip stamped with a familiar logo lay nestled within, human-made. The Council wasn't just negligent, they were actively collaborating with someone. Estelle stirred, her bioluminescence flickering more rapidly. Her voice, weak but resonating with a strength that belied her physical state, echoed in Jake's mind. "Jake, activate it, the template, even if it means sacrificing me." Jake hesitated, his hand hovering over the activation button on the console. The genetic template, a last resort, a desperate gamble. It could save her, it could kill her, it could unleash something he didn't understand. He looked at Estelle, her emerald eyes filled with a trust he didn't deserve. His brow furrowed in anguish. Just then, the facility shook violently. Explosions rocked the station, alarms blaring, and the sounds of fighting intensified. The Aleni extremists, those who sought to eradicate the Giantesses entirely, had launched their own attack. Jake realized with a sickening certainty that the extremists' attack was coordinated with the Council enforcer. This was a far deeper conspiracy than he had imagined. The Council was using the extremists as a scapegoat, a way to eliminate Estelle and the potential threat she represented without leaving any trace. He took a deep breath, his decision made. He had to trust Estelle. He had to trust the science. He pressed the activation button. The air crackled with energy. Estelle's bioluminescence flared, engulfing the med bay in a blinding emerald light. She arched her back, a surge of power coursing through her veins, pushing back the plague's insidious tendrils. A holographic projection shimmered into existence above the console, an ancient symbol resolving into a complex message. The language was archaic, a blend of human and Aleni, but Jake's implant translator kicked in. "The plague, resurgence, the seed must be protected. A cure, element xylose, found on Aleni Prime, the Western Reach." The message faded, leaving Jake stunned. A warning from the ancient human-Aleni alliance, a plan for a cure and a new destination, the Aleni homeworld. "Xylose," Estelle gasped, her voice stronger now, the bioluminescence receding to a steady glow. "The Western Reach, a place of great power and great danger." Outside, the fighting raged. Rebel fighters, answering Jake's distress call, engaged both the Council enforcers' strike force and the Aleni extremists, creating a chaotic battlefield. Plasma fire illuminated the corridors, the air thick with smoke and the acrid smell of burning flesh. Amid the chaos, the lead Council enforcer staggered into the med bay, his armor scorched and smoking. "Doctor," he rasped, his voice filled with remorse, They manipulated me, the scientists, the plague, I didn't know." Jake didn't have time to process the enforcer's confession. "We need to get out of here," he said, grabbing a medkit. "Now." Together, Jake, Estelle, and the remaining rebels fought their way through the collapsing facility. As they reached the escape pods, a series of explosions ripped through the station, tearing it apart. The remaining research data, the seed, everything was lost. They launched their escape pod into the void, watching as the research facility crumbled into dust. Estelle's health was improving, but she needed xylose to be fully cured. Jake looked at Estelle, her emerald eyes filled with purpose. "The Aleni Council," he said, his voice grim. "They won't expect us. It's time to pay them a visit." He initiated the coordinates for Aleni Prime, preparing for a perilous journey into the heart of enemy territory. The odds were stacked against them, but for the first time since arriving on this forsaken space station, Jake felt a surge of hope. He had a purpose, a mission, and a love worth fighting for. The transport shuddered as it pierced the Eleni atmosphere, alarms blaring a discordant symphony of warning. Outside, the sky was a canvas of emerald and gold, streaked with the crimson trails of plasma fire. Jake, strapped into a repurposed jump seat beside Estelle, gripped her hand. "Rough welcome," he muttered, his eyes scanning the tactical display. "But we expected it." Estelle's bioluminescent skin pulsed with a soft, nervous light. "The Loyalists are entrenched around the capital," she said, her voice resonating with a quiet grit. "They will not relinquish their power easily." Jake nodded, already formulating a plan. "Then we'll have to be smarter. Their strength lies in their control of the city. We need to bypass that." He tapped the display, highlighting a network of forgotten tunnels beneath the capital. These were used by the ancient Eleni artisans. A small group of rebels knows the entrances. The rebels, a ragtag collection of soldiers, scientists, and disillusioned council members, met them at a hidden depot just outside the city limits. Their leader, a wiry Eleni woman named Lyra, greeted them with a weary smile. "Dr. Walker, Estelle, we are ready." As Jake outlined his plan, Estelle closed her eyes, focusing her empathic abilities. She could feel the fear and uncertainty swirling within the city, but also flickers of hope, of longing for change. "I can influence them," she said, her voice gaining strength. "The guards, the staff. I can sow seeds of doubt, create dissension." Under the cover of darkness, they infiltrated the city through the ancient tunnels. Estelle, her presence radiating calm, subtly influenced the guards at key checkpoints, diverting their attention, planting suggestions of questioning their orders. The council's headquarters, a towering spire of obsidian and crystal, loomed before them. Inside the council chamber, the air crackled with tension. The council members, their faces etched with arrogance and fear, stared down at Jake and Estelle. "You dare bring your rebellion to our doorstep?" The lead counselor, a gaunt Eleni male named Vorin, sneered. Jake stepped forward, his voice amplified by a small device he'd cobbled together from spare parts. "I bring the truth. The truth about your corruption, your lies, and your involvement in the creation of the genetic plague." He activated the device, projecting holographic evidence, intercepted communications, genetic sequencing data, and eyewitness accounts onto the chamber walls. The counselors' faces paled. Vorin, desperate, smacked his palm on the table. "Arrest them. They are traitors." Guards surged forward, energy weapons raised. Jake, anticipating the move, grabbed Estelle and dove behind a massive hollow projector. He fired a pulse of electromagnetic energy from his wrist-mounted device, disabling the guards' weapons. A brief, chaotic skirmish erupted. Jake, using his knowledge of the building's layout, navigated through the chaos, disabling security cameras and jamming communication signals. He reached the central control panel and, with a few deft keystrokes, deactivated the building's security systems. A moment later, the rebel forces stormed the chamber. The council's authority crumbled. Outside, the Eleni people, emboldened by the rebels' success, poured into the streets, demanding justice. A debate raged about the future of their society, the fate of the Giantesses, and the role of the council. Estelle, standing on a makeshift platform overlooking the crowd, raised her hands. A hush fell over the square. "Eleni," she said, her voice resonating with power and conviction. "We have suffered for too long under the weight of prejudice and corruption. It is time for unity, for justice, for an end to violence. Let us build a new society, one based on compassion, understanding, and respect for all." As Estelle spoke, Jake felt a surge of energy, a connection to something ancient and profound. He remembered the message from the ancient human-Eleni alliance, the one he initially dismissed as a myth. Now, it resonated with chilling clarity. The rare element needed for the cure, the element they had been unable to synthesize, could be activated by the connection between a human and an empath. It required their combined energies. He looked at Estelle, her eyes shining with commitment. "Estelle," he said, I think I know how to finish this. They moved to a secluded chamber beneath the council headquarters, a chamber once used for ancient Alini rituals. In the center stood a crystalline structure, humming with latent energy. Jake explained his theory, his voice filled with excitement. We need to amplify our connection, Estelle. Focus all your empathic energy, channel it through me, and direct it into the crystal. Estelle nodded, taking his hands. Their bioluminescent skin pulsed in unison. They closed their eyes, focusing their minds, drawing on their love, their hope, their shared purpose. A blinding light erupted from the crystal, bathing the chamber in an ethereal glow. The air crackled with energy. When the light subsided, a vial of shimmering liquid rested at the base of the crystal. The cure. The cure was distributed throughout the city, reaching the remaining giantesses, halting the spread of the plague. Hope bloomed in the hearts of the Alini people. The corrupt council members were arrested and brought to justice. A new government, led by Lyra and other rebel leaders, was formed, promising transparency, accountability, and equality for all. A new era dawned. Humans and Alini, once separated by prejudice and misunderstanding, began to work together, building a future of cooperation and mutual respect. Jake and Estelle, now hailed as heroes, became ambassadors of peace and unity,